Welcome to the Industrial Marketing Leaders Podcast, the place that brings together experts on what's now, what's new, and what's next in marketing for industrial manufacturers. Now here's the owner of True Focus Media and your host, Jeff Long.
Welcome back to another episode of the Industrial Marketing Leaders Podcast. Again, my name is Jeff Long from True Focus Media. And I'm really excited for our show today with Emily Ting of CCS, where she talks about how to approach marketing, both from somebody that's maybe new to the marketing department and marketing in general, as well as from the leadership perspective and just that dynamic, right? And how to approach that. We talk about that from the perspective of small to medium-sized manufacturers. Now, one thing we get into is content marketing, right? And all the benefits of that. And so when you hear that, I know we talk about different things, but that can look like a lot of things these days. What I encourage people to do is typically start with video, right? People would typically rather watch a short video about a topic, maybe answering a question or a thought leadership piece, seeing a product demo, or things like that. And then from there, you can add articles, you can add audio, you can create short social media clips, you can add it to your email marketing, put it on YouTube, put it on your website, put it into your blog, put it into your learning center. So there's so much you can do with your content marketing, especially when video is the foundation. So don't overlook that. Again, you can start with video, create pictures and articles and text and audios and a multitude of things just from the video content. I mean, that's what my company, True Focus Media, does. So that's my kind of recommendation to you because I'm seeing what works in marketing these days. Well, let's get right into the interview with Emily Ting of CCS. All right, welcome back to another episode of the Industrial Marketing Leaders Podcast. I'm here with Emily Ting of CCS. So, Emily, thanks for being on the podcast here today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Sure. So let me read a little bit about Emily so you can get to know her. So she is on a mission to help industrial marketers shift from tactical order takers to strategic growth drivers. Too often, marketing is undervalued or misunderstood, and which can lead to efforts that lack alignment with business goals. So by focusing on strategic thinking, she helps elevate marketing from a cost center to a driver of growth. And her work in industrial automation, she shares insights to help marketers evaluate activities, prioritize impact initiatives, and communicate value in terms of leadership, in terms that leadership understands. And we'll get into some of those things, how she's a thought leader, how she approaches that. But that is a little bit about her. Again, Emily, thanks for being on the show here today. So the first question I want to ask you here is to get to know you a little bit better. So before we hit record, I ask kind of, pick something you want to talk about. So Emily, tell us a little bit, something about you that might be interesting to our audience here.
Yeah. I do lots of travel since I was a little kid, been many countries all over the world, hopefully many more. Probably my favorite or, the one that's clear and away the one I've been to the most is Japan.
Mm,
Um, my mom's Japanese, so,
mm,
even like from the year I was born, at least once a year
mm,
we were going to
mm,
Japan. She's from, the southernmost, big island in Japan since there's, 4 of those big islands. It's very different from, like, the giant metropolis of Tokyo. It's probably closer to, like, you know, the suburbs, the countryside, some might
mm,
say the boonies, but a great place. It's famous for, being or having the most hot springs of any
mm,
of the prefectures in Japan, so it
mm.
was something I always, we go there and then we take a trip to one of the big hot spring towns in that area, so that's always been, a good memory, and, even in adulthood, I go there a lot, even for work, now that I work for a Japanese company, which we'll get into, and I guess honorable mentions for places I've been to, Turkey was really interesting, also Cambodia, that was another really cool
Wow.
place, yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I love travel. I've been to 5 continents, all 50 states.
Oh,
I've been
nice.
to the, or through the, Tokyo airport, but never, gotten out and seen, the beautiful country, there. I feel like most people in their, like, top 3 or whatever is Japan and,
Yeah.
it just has a amazing quality to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you work for, CCS, and that stands for Creating Customer Satisfaction, which I think is a pretty cool, acronym and reason for titling that company. So, how do you think your company philosophy of creating customer satisfaction and the focus on love and appreciation for customers, how does that influence your marketing and everything you do there at CCS?
Yeah, I think, what's unique is this is, like, the very Japan definition
Hmm.
of customer satisfaction, right? Which, I feel like it the country has a reputation of, like, above and beyond
Mhm.
customer service or, they just take it to levels we wouldn't even necessarily
Mm.
fathom,
Mhm.
even if it costs a little bit of extra
Hmm.
time and money on their part to do it. Um, and, all the departments are kind of actualizing that in their ways from a marketing perspective. I think, 2 ways it comes about a lot is, like, we try to focus on, um, especially with content marketing,
Mm.
what gaps we can fill in
Mm.
for in customers', knowledge or understanding of machine vision lighting because, when I first joined, there was a lot of, good
Mm.
surface level or, it covered the basics, and I think if you didn't have or, you were either making the basics, doing a case study,
Mm.
or, talking about the latest trending
Mm.
technology in the industry, which, those are all great starting points, and we still do a little bit of that now, but I think we wanted to take it a step further and say, like, what are the things that people should know that they're not
Mm.
explicitly asking about because they don't even know it's a thing, or, you know, it's that saying of, like, if you ask people what they wanted, I would have wanted a faster horse instead of, coming up with the car. It's like they don't like, it's in their subconscious or they're making an off the hand remark um and you're like, "Oh, that's actually something we can turn into this whole
Mm.
educational piece."
Mm.
So that's one thing, and then the other thing is, delighting customers in unexpected ways.
Mm.
I think especially now you have to stand out to be memorable,
Mm.
but you also don't wanna do it in a way that makes you feel, like, gross or tacky.
Right. So how have you approached that? What are some maybe success stories of ways you've delighted or surprised your customers?
Yeah, for example, at a trade show last year, Automate,
Mm.
we did this thing where, like, we brought these Japanese toys, this skill toy called the kendama, um, and we were giving them away or not giving them away, that's this year. We were using them to create a challenge, so it's kind of like this wooden
Mm.
toy, and it's got a handle, and then there's a ball attached to the
Mm.
string, and you have to, like, catch it on certain parts of the handle, um, and, if people could catch it on one of those parts, we would let them take home a free light, one of our products for free, so it was a fun thing, and, it catches attention because people are just like, "What is that?"
Mm.
Um, you'd never seen it before, um so that's one example. This year, one thing that we're actually, just starting to put out is a kind of appreciation gift
Mm.
for some of our, you know, highest performing customers from
Mm.
last year. And, the way we made it unique was, again, putting a Japanese spin onto it where, in Japan, there's this tradition where the first business day of the new year, these retail stores will all sell what's called a lucky bag.
Hmm.
Um, it's kind of like a mystery bag, and, you pay, a certain amount of money, and it's, maybe 3x, 4x the actual,
Hmm.
the stuff inside is 3 or 4x the value of what you're
Hmm.
actually paying for it. But it's a hit or miss, and that's the fun of it. Like, you might get something that you're like, "I don't need this. This is lame," but you also might get something like, "Oh, this is really neat.
Hmm.
This is really cool." So we kind of turned that, instead of just, you know, a generic, appreciation thing, we, like, made a whole theme
Hmm.
out of the, appreciation gift, which,
Yeah,
early signs from certain customers is that they really liked it.
that's
So
great.
yeah.
I love that. And even before you talked about, in delighting your customers, surprising them, you mentioned something about kind of almost being like an education company or teaching your ideal customers. I find that that's really almost mandatory these days, right? Gone are the days where only cold calling and door knocking and kind of the old school method work. Now, with 82% of B2B buyers fully doing their research online
Right.
before reaching out to a salesperson, like we have to educate them because they're going to find it somewhere, right? And so
Yeah,
is it going to be with your company or your competitor? Well, then let's make sure it's our company, so we win.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So what types of content are you finding is beneficial these days and maybe works well for you?
Uh, Educational events,
Mm,
webinars, are we've been
mm,
doing that for the past 2 years now, and
mm,
it's, you know, worked well for us. And I think we're going to translate
mm,
that also into in-person
mm,
educational events. Those kind of, stopped during COVID.
mm,
We never started it back up, but we thought, this is a good opportunity. And, you know, we know what kind of value it can
mm.
bring.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and I find that, yeah, it's a good mix of, like, in person, but also online, is obviously a great mix,
Yeah.
and, I was actually on your company's YouTube channel and looking at some of the webinars, and
Yeah.
and so, yeah,
That's our work.
well, and I think that's smart because, it's one thing to have a webinar once and be like, "All right, we had X amount of people view it," and then do nothing with it, right? And so
Yeah.
then it's like, okay, put it on YouTube, put it on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
You could even chop it up into segments, so maybe if you're
Exactly. That's
y
that's what we do is, like, we're
perfect.
we're
Yeah.
putting it all out, in these little clips and just, like,
Nice.
recycling,
Right.
reusing, making it go as far as it can.
That's perfect. Yeah, because obviously it takes a lot of work to create the content, the slides, what are we gonna talk about? And so,
Yeah.
once you do that, yeah, it's smart to repurpose things as much as you can. I love that. Give me kind of the brief overview of what CCS does, the products they sell and solutions they provide.
Yeah. So CCS is, they sell or design and
Mm,
sell, machine vision
mm,
lighting solutions for industrial automation. If you're using a sensor to, perform quality control
mm,
or, tracking products as they're moving
mm,
through your whole logistics operation, chances are you're using machine vision lighting
mm,
to, make sure that you're able to see whether it's like a barcode or a defect, so that you can really like get the contrast because, cameras don't have the same
mm,
vision characteristics as we humans do. So
mm,
things that, you know, we can see very easily, they might not be able to see very
mm.
easily. And, they have their strengths in that they can see certain things that humans can't see,
Yeesh.
like UV and IR, light, like cameras can see that humans can't. Um, so it's really interesting.
Mm,
But yeah, so I work for CCS America, the
mm,
US office. So we're essentially, providing CCS's products to the US or
mm,
North and South America. We're also, the sole provider of our two sister companies, Efflux, and who does what we call flood lighting, whereas
Mm.
CCS is more precision lighting, and then Gardasoft, which is lighting controllers. So that helps you like turn the light on at a specific time at a certain brightness, and that helps you kind of make your lights last as long as possible.
That's good.
It's a lot more complex than I think, people would realize.
Hmm. So Emily, I've seen your post on LinkedIn, and I really appreciate your thought leadership. So I'm curious, what motivates you to post ideas on LinkedIn, and what keeps you going?
Yeah, I my coworkers will tell you that I am, like, a chronic overthinker. That's, like,
Mm.
my bad habit, and I spend a lot of time
Mm.
inside my head, and a lot of that time is spent
Mm.
on, marketing and work-related stuff, and, you know, um, it posting on LinkedIn helps
Mm.
me get, what out
Mm.
of my head onto, the, metaphorical paper,
Mm.
but, I'm always thinking about, like, did this work? Did this not
Mm.
work? Why did it go the way it did? And so I want to, you know, share that, and hopefully, people who are in very similar situations, can kind of take something
Mm.
from that. So that's kind of why I do it and why I keep going, even though I tend to be kind of irregular about it.
Sure, sure. Well, like I said, I've appreciated your post, over these many months or probably a little longer. I've just kind of seen you, and I think that's the underappreciated, benefits of thought leadership, right? Is like I've been at different trade shows or different, events, and people recognize me because of, the podcasts or different, video value bombs I'm posting on LinkedIn and YouTube and other places, and so, it is a way to give back, and I know before we hit record, you and I were talking about how we're not trying to, be famous or be an influencer or, get eyes on us, but I'm guessing we both, I know I do, I love to give back. I love to help and teach and serve, and, like, that's how I view my thought leadership, and so I'm wondering if
Totally.
you're the same way.
Exactly. No.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've noticed, a lot of these conversations on this podcast here with different people, almost everyone we've talked about imposter syndrome, right? And so I even tell myself that when I'm like, should I post this? Is it good enough? Do people care? It's like, you know what? I think everyone struggles with imposter syndrome. Maybe there's like 5 people that don't or something, but, or certain personalities I'm sure don't that, but yeah, most people question, is this good enough? Did I do it right? Will people like it? If it doesn't perform, what's that mean? So, yeah, I would just encourage you as I'm encouraging me to keep posting out there. We need, people like you out there, Emily, sharing your knowledge.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you.
So, let's talk about marketing. Why do you think that marketing is often undervalued and overlooked in many small to medium-sized manufacturing companies?
I think a lot of them, you know, started out with like, you know, they grew through these historic
Mm.
relationships that continued to this day. But, you know, that didn't require them to like create brochures
Mm.
or even necessarily have a nice website because, they knew people and had, like, extremely
True.
strong trust with them, and, those people had relationships, other relationships with people who could be
Mm.
potential customers, and, like, they trusted that
Mm.
person, um, and so, fast forward to today, that's how they grew their
Mm.
business, um and, without anybody in
Mm.
marketing, without knowing what marketing is, without understanding what marketing is. So I think it's
Right.
natural to undervalue it in that situation.
And that's such a good point. I've not really thought about that. Is it's like as the business grows, their needs grow, right? So like you mentioned, maybe it grew on the knowledge and IP of the owner or whatever, and as they
Yeah.
grow and then, there's kind of they kind of rely on maybe the old school, marketing and sales tactics that maybe did work tremendously, but things have changed, and so
Yeah.
sometimes I know I find that some of these small, medium-sized manufacturers, they don't really know how to approach the web and social media and video content, and so they're kinda looking at, maybe some even younger folks that are coming up and excited about marketing. Um, so, yeah, I've just, seen that time and time again. Um, you mentioned to me even offline about, like, planning and strategy and how, you're taking a lot of that on, despite having different people over you, and that's common, of course, to have people over you, next to you, it's a team effort. So,
Yeah.
how do you approach, your marketing day to day, with, what you're doing, how you approach, the leaders above you and around you, and how do you kinda tackle that, in your job?
Yeah, I think I'm, very fortunate that I had a lot, 2 things going for me in
Mm,
that, we kind of talked about this before we
mm,
started that I, went to Japan to train for 2 to 3 years at our
mm,
head office, um, and that kind of allowed me to take a crash course in marketing,
mm,
when I didn't really know anything about it, and then, kind of self-study on, like,
mm,
the deeper stuff beyond, um, how to just, like, do all the tactical
mm,
stuff, but then, so I came back to CCS America where I took on more of that, like, in charge of the full
right,
marketing program, and I had that knowledge where I think a lot of people
uh-huh,
go in knowing nothing about marketing, so they
mm,
they have to take that time to study it as they're trying to, like, build the plane
mm,
essentially.
right,
So there was, that was one thing. The second is I had, um, good relationship and trust with,
mm,
like, 2 influential figures in the company, let's say. One of them is, the current, um, general manager of sales and marketing,
mm,
so kind of the person two levels above me,
mm,
and then, our I think his current title is, like, executive vice president, but he's, the expat that Japan
mm,
sends to kind of oversee day-to-day operations
mm,
um in the regional office, and he and I had known each other, quite well,
mm,
while I was working in Japan, and he even helped me with a lot of, the tasks that I was assigned
mm,
while I was there, so we had that trust, so even if they
right,
didn't necessarily understand marketing to its, like, full extent,
mhm,
they trusted me, to, try different things, or even if I, like, couldn't explain and articulate things the best, they were willing to give it a shot or,
mm,
hear me out instead of just, like, shut me down because I was wasting their time.
right, right. And I've found that again, I've worked with manufacturing, companies of all sizes, from the big international, big named ones to, smallish local, whatever. And, sometimes they, hire maybe somebody fresh out of college because they're trying to save money. And I understand that, every company has budgets, right? It's
Right.
not like you can just manufacture, money type of thing. But
It's only
um, right. So it's interesting. One of my favorite books is by a guy named Benjamin Hardy. It's called Who, Not How. And he talks about finding the best person, the who, that can help you achieve your goals. And because they're the best person, and maybe they're not like the best, most famous, whatever, but the best for your company, if you
right.
find that person, they're going to help you get there a lot faster than if maybe you want the like new person or inexperienced person or something like that.
Yeah.
So I guess my question, with that is like, do you have any advice for small to medium size manufacturers who do hire people with little to no marketing background? Like, How can they navigate that?
Yeah, you know, internally, I think, in terms of finding your champions,
Mm,
the type of person I think I'd
mm,
recommend finding is, somebody
mm,
who has a seat at the leadership
mhm,
table, um, just so that, your ideas or your voice might,
mm,
start to trickle in at that
mm,
level, especially if you identify something compelling
mm,
that can be improved and that would, help impact the bottom line. And, I think the character of that person is also really important. Like,
mm, ch
are they open-minded? They're not set in the old ways,
Jeez.
or they're willing to hear you out even though you're kind of this young upstart, so to
Right.
speak. And they want to get things done or make things happen, um, you know, in their own role,
Mhm,
but also for you. Like, they want you to be able to accomplish things and want
mhm.
to do what they can to help you, um, take that step. And, again, if that means having certain conversations with
Mm,
people in leadership that, um, they'll make that happen. And,
mm,
they should have a good reputation with all of the people in that leadership,
right.
uh, group, because if they're, not well liked, or if people
Mm,
tend to ignore what they say, then it can be a little harder to get things done. That's, like, the ideal situation, and maybe you have to kind of hone in on what's possible in your situation.
right. And I find that especially in these small to medium-sized manufacturing companies, like, there's tremendous opportunities for somebody to come in and let's say they have little marketing experience, or maybe they're even fresh out of, college, university, and so they have some background and familiarity, but it's not like they have decades of experience. Again, for, the owner of the company, for some of the executives, for, the top salespeople, a lot of times these marketing strategies are always changing, right? And so sometimes they just don't wanna learn new things or, whether it's, AI or video marketing or just all the different things, you could list 20 different things that any company should be doing, for marketing, and it is overwhelming. And
Yeah,
so, with initiative, if you're a constant learner and growth minded and you're offering value and ideas, I've just seen how that kind of quote unquote inexperienced marketer can kind of quickly learn things, learn the industry, learn marketing, implement things, track and analyze and improve. And it's kind of, the leadership is kind of like, oh my word, this stuff actually works,
y
and so there's
yeah, and, like,
there's
even more so than ever, we kind of
mm,
talked about how there's this been like,
mm,
an explosion of, like, education for marketers in the industrial space,
mhm,
which I think, is like, it deserves to be its own niche within B2B marketing. And so there's a lot of,
mm,
communities out there, or people who can, share their experiences that,
mm,
like, everybody who's a marketer in
mm,
industrial understands and has
eh,
probably gone through
s-
themselves, and just, like, they'll share
mm,
what mistakes to avoid, how you can do something more efficiently, or, like,
mm,
there's a lot of information out there, but, like, just start out knowing these
mm,
5 to 10, like, guiding principles,
mhm,
and they're also nice and, like, willing to help each other out because they know how hard it is. They're willing to, like, jump on a call and chat with you, or, send you some advice if you
mhm.
message them.
Totally, totally. So I'm curious, and who knows what answer you'll be top of mind here. But let's say your company and your department specifically had, we'll call it even unlimited resources and budget. Is there anything like on a wish list? You're like, man, if you know if we didn't have if we had more budget and resources, I'd love to do X, Y, or Z. Like, is there anything on your wish list there?
Oof, that's, it's hard to even fathom just
Right.
because when I think about my current budget, I envy all the, you know, n direct to consumer brands that just do all these amazing PR stuff, and it's just like, "How
Right.
much did that cost?" Or
Yeah. Yeah.
probably more than, like, my entire salary, probably, like, 5x more my entire
Right.
salary, and it's just like, ugh, I can't fathom what to do with that kind of money, but, uh, you know, CRM,
Mm,
probably,
mm,
it's, you know, it's the tough one because I think to make strategic marketing
mm,
decisions, like, nobody would argue that you need data about, like, your opportunities to get a sense of what moves to make, but that also depends on, you know, inputting the right data, um, which is, kind of on the sales team to a big extent.
mm,
I think you hear a lot of stories about how salespeople resist or, it's
mm,
adoption is really difficult, in a lot of
mm,
cases, but also, time. So even if
mm,
you put a CRM in place tomorrow, if your cycle is like, I don't know, 3 to 5 years even, which
mm,
isn't unusual in our industry, like,
mm,
you you're gonna have to be willing to, keep putting
mm.
in the da the data until
Right.
then, but you won't be able to make strategic decisions or, fully informed strategic
Mm,
decisions until, you know, 5 years later, even, 10 years later, because
mm,
depending on if you only get, like, 10 opportunities in a year or something, then, you know, would you make, like, business altering decisions
mm.
on a sample set of 10 versus, 100 or 1,000?
Right.
Probably not, or you're gonna have to find, qualitative
Hmm.
data in the meantime, and that's really difficult
Mm,
for some people. It takes a lot more work than just, entering things or automatically putting things into, a system or an Excel sheet.
totally. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's good. That's interesting. Yeah. I just thought I'd ask that. So as we kind of land the plane here, first of all, I appreciate your insights. I feel like we've been able to approach this from both angles, both from like the leadership's perspective, as well as somebody that's maybe coming into the marketing department and trying to offer as much value as they can. And so I think you brought up a lot of good points there. So my last question here, I call tool time. So, give me a favorite tool that you use regularly that helps improve your marketing.
Regularly. Probably ChatGPT, which feels like such a cop out kind of,
No,
but it's so relevant in
yeah.
this day and age. You know, I the key is, like,
Mm,
really putting in, time on the
mm,
inputs or, it's like, don't be lazy with,
mm.
like, uh with the instructions you give to it.
Right.
That's how you get kind of the generic,
Mm,
um, result that people complain, like, "AI sucks," and, like, "Just look at this." I feel like I write, like, a whole, like, thing out
mm,
a lot of the time or, there's a difference between it's like when you Googled something super, like, short and generic versus, like,
mm,
writing out something longer or,
mm.
something that wasn't in the top 10 search results and that
Right.
got you something, um, a bit more unexpected or something that, like, poked at your
Mm,
brain a little more. That's another useful way for me to use ChatGPT is, like, if I want, um, to think about something, I ask it to, like, give me a perspective, and it's like, do I agree with that? Do I
mm.
disagree with that? You kind of just, like, need something in front of you to start the gears turning.
Right. And I even find, like you said, it's all about the input. And even the output, sometimes you're like, okay, that's good, or that's, we're getting somewhere. But even if it can improve something like 20%, right? I mean, to me, that's worth it. Sometimes it's, a lot more than 20%. Um, but also it's always makes me feel good when it spits something out and I'm like, you know what, my version was actually better. I'm going with that. And
Yeah,
just based on my experience and my knowledge, and so it's obviously not a perfect thing, and it is, yeah, to me it's a good kind of helps with feedback and refines things and gives ideas. So,
yeah. It's also good if
um
you're, like, having a mental block of sorts, like, you're staring at what you wrote and, like, this is crap, and if you put it in, it's like, uh, whatever it comes up with, like, did you like that more? Did you like it less? But did it help you figure out, like, what you actually like, or what was the problem with what you wrote initially? Then
Right.
that has its own uses. Um, so, you c uh there's a lot of value.
Totally. Well, even of the 10 plus questions I ask you, I think 2 or 3 of them, um, we had previous conversations about what we wanted to talk about, and so I popped that into ChatGPT, and I just said, "Hey, how could I formulate, questions on this?" And so, yeah, 2 or 3 of the questions I ask you were formulated from there, just to get the ball rolling and
Yeah,
things
for
like
what it's
that,
worth,
and so,
like, they were
uh
all really good questions too,
yeah,
so
well, I mean, like you said, it's all about kinda teaching and training and all that. So, no, I think ChatGPT is a great resource. I think it's, I think some people are either scared or don't understand it or overwhelmed, right? And then those of us
right,
that do use it, and of course, you can go off the deep end and, like, not even read or, review what it spits out, and of course, that's when it looks like it's a creepy robot or whatever,
yeah.
that isn't from this world. So, no, that's totally good. Well, yeah. Well, Emily, hey, I really appreciate you coming on here today, talking about marketing, talking about different perspectives of management, and coming in new and how it applies to you and your industry. And so, thanks for being on the Industrial Marketing Leaders podcast here today.
Thank you for having me, I really enjoyed this.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that interview with Emily Ting of CCS. Like I said in the episode, I've been following her on LinkedIn for a while now and have been impressed with her insights, her knowledge, and what she's contributing. So definitely, if you're not connected with Emily on LinkedIn, make sure to go over there and connect with her. Tell her you heard about her from the podcast. And my encouragement to you is be posting on LinkedIn, and not just the, hey, our company has a new product coming out, or something that's company or product focused. While that is very important, and I don't want to minimize that, but also think about what thought leadership content you can create, right? Again, ideally, video is the best content, whether it's podcast or like video value bombs that my company helps other companies create, or just short videos, from your phone or webcam. I definitely highly recommend that. But even before you do that, if that's too overwhelming, if you need a company to help you, that's why we're here. But do written content, put pictures and comment on that. Put personal post. I just want to encourage you. There's so much knowledge and expertise in this industrial space. And imagine if we could all help each other out. I think it's that rising tide lifts all boats type of situation, right? I think our whole industry will improve as we're showcasing our expertise. And again, I understand there's a lot of imposter syndrome where you think, well, who am I to post? Who am I to make a video or a podcast or a video value bomb or whatever? But we need you. This industry needs you. And so don't get overwhelmed with the details. I know I do that as well, right? Who am I to post? Or is this good enough? Or I made a mistake here, or whatever that is. Just post things out there, and you'll be impressed how that helps propel you as a marketing leader, you as a thought leader. There's some other benefits I've heard of, people getting raises or getting promotions, or even going to different companies because they're seen as that thought leader. So it only benefits you, your company, your leadership there as you're posting. All right, well, that's all for today. Keep coming back to the Industrial Marketing Leaders podcast, and I would be honored if you would subscribe to this podcast, whether you're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else. Subscribe. If you're on YouTube or Spotify or some of the others where you can like or leave a comment, that would mean a lot to me as well. So thanks for listening or watching to the Industrial Marketing Leaders podcast. I hope you come back for more. Thanks so much.